Today back in the studio showing you how to sidechain, when to sidechain, how not to sidechain, everything that has to do with sidechain.
Ugly as beautiful to me, so stay.
Feels so good to be finally back in the studio. 3 days without being here, without making music. It feels really bad to me. I don't know why, but that's just how I am. I just love making music, being creative, and whenever I can, I don't know, it just feels like something is missing. By the way, I just got this right here in the mail, and this is like, I need to pick up a package. They tried to deliver it to me. I wasn't here yesterday, I did my taxes. So let me really quick go and get it. For you it's just a second, for me it's like 30 minutes waiting to get those packages. I got a nice little letter from Yamaha. As you know, I was at the IFA, like this music electronics fair thing, or maybe someone at Yamaha is interested in sending me those. That somehow ended with a lot of drinks, a party bus. That's nice. And more drinks and all of that in Berlin. We got here the... Okay, that's actually just a boring letter telling me that I got something. That's what they gave me as a present. It's one of their speakers. I really appreciate it, but I honestly don't know what to do with it. I mean, I got here the big speakers that are made for the studio, so I might either use it at home or maybe here as a reference speaker, because those are like the normal at-home mono listening speakers. So it might be actually cool to have them as a reference. And I got a second package. I didn't order it. Yeah, that's basically what I was talking about in one of the other videos. I get a lot of stuff sent by Chinese companies, camera stuff, tripods, selfie sticks. I don't know, this one might actually work. It's one of those bendy tripod things. I mean, yeah, you know, this channel is not an unboxing channel, it's not a review channel, it's a channel about me, my music making process, and how to try and advance in the music business world and make it as a DJ and producer, which is extremely hard, as you know. It's not easy, I'm trying. I'm already happy that I made it from starting to DJ with 13, 14, 15 to becoming a producer, a ghost producer, and now finally just making this full time with my own music project. So yeah, after spending 3 days at home because I was sick and had to take care of the taxes, let's get straight to making music. So today, working on a remix actually. A remix that I unfortunately can't share with you. I can't play you anything of it. It's a remix for, yeah, someone big, and I'm not sure if it will get released. I'm not allowed to play you any of the stems, especially not the vocals. And I'm already here in a stage where I would start like doing the EQing and starting with putting a sidechain on top of it. And actually, like the last time I did the track submit edition where you guys sent me tracks and I give you feedback, it was actually a live stream. I realized that a lot of people make mistakes with the sidechaining. It's very important for electronic music, and you will probably use it on any track you will ever make and release that is electronic music, because it really helps you to get the 4 to the floor kick out of the mix and just have the typical EDM kind of sound and the pumping. But at the same time, if you get that pumping wrong and if you don't adjust the sidechaining correctly and use the right amount on the right elements, it will sound weird and kind of off and ruin your track and sound very amateurish. So let me give you a couple of tips how to get the sidechaining actually right, when to use it, how to use it, and the best plugins for sidechaining. But before that, a quick explanation of sidechaining for the 1 or 2 people that don't know what it is. You basically use the kick as a trigger for a compressor, and this way tell it on your audio material, be it a main synthesizer, a pad or whatever, to duck it whenever the kick is hitting. So every time the kick is playing, the material that you choose gets sidechained, it gets reduced in volume by the amount of the kick or to whatever you set it. So let me actually play you a quick example. Let me open up a new track here in Logic, a new software instrument, load into it. Let's pick maybe Diva, choose just a, I don't know, a polysynth. And now let's just take the standard compressor. That's the standard way to do it, the old school way, kind of to use a compressor. And then at the very top you see sidechain, and there you choose the channel where you have the kick. So either you have a separate sidechain channel. I have one, it's called sidechain kick, so I just choose it. And now when I hit play, you can see that the metering is kind of triggered by the kick. And if I change it to graph, you can even see what it's doing. So every time the kick hits, it lowers the volume of this chord pad kind of sound. And with the threshold, I can adjust how hard it's actually doing that, how much it is reducing the volume. So the more I lower the threshold, the more it will duck. I've now changed the ratio up to 5, so it will do it even more, and now you can definitely hear the pumping, the side chaining. You can even hear and see whenever I press the spacebar to end it, that it's like increasing in volume again, just a tail. I stop it, no more trigger, and you get the volume back. So that's a very, very extreme setting of sidechaining. I would never ever use it in this way in a song, but just to show you what it's basically doing. It's just reducing the volume whenever the kick hits. And doing it with the compressor is the old school way. Just on a side note, with the Logic compressor, be careful. You can also sidechain not on peak. You can also sidechain on RMS, depending on which of the compressor types you're using. Be careful, you should set it to peak and not to RMS. Because let me tell you, for the first 3 months I was using sidechain, I had the setting wrong. I had it as a preset. I always reused that preset and had this mistake in every single of my tracks. Yeah, just 1 second. And I was really wondering, why do my tracks not pump? Why can't I really hear the kick? It's because the sidechain was just set to the wrong value. And as I said, like using a compressor and the trigger is like the old school way. It has like one big downside. Whenever you have the kick not playing, there won't be sidechaining. Sometimes you need the sidechaining in the break where there is no kick. Sometimes you don't want it. You just don't really have the control over it. And you always use a kick as a sidechain. So you can't actually reshape the thing that is triggering the sidechain. You would have to exchange it for another kick. So for the longest time, you just use the compressor and the kick. But nowadays you have plugins where you can kind of just draw in whatever needs to be triggered, and you're way more flexible and you can apply it to every channel in a different way, and you don't need a ghost kick as a sidechain trigger. You just have way more control by using something like the LFO tool. So the LFO tool was super basic. As you can see, you can really just draw in the shape of whatever should be like triggered, what should be kind of lowered in volume. It's kind of just doing the automation for you. You could also draw an automation for every single kick hit, but this way it's way easier. It's doing it for you. You can decide in which pattern, like come on every beat or every second beat. Or I think that's one of the most useful things for future bass. You sometimes have the sidechain instead of on quarters, on 8s, or maybe even on 16s, and doing it with that is way easier than having like a 16 ghost kick. And besides of being able to draw in the shape of your source trigger material, what I really love is the LFO routing. So you can also decide to change the cutoff, the resonance, the volume is already set to 100. That's the sidechain. You can also change the pen, and with that have like even more effects on top of it. You could, for example, trigger it to always just sidechain the low frequencies whenever the kick is hitting, so that you actually don't have like this high amount of pumping. For music that is more like acoustic influenced, if you do like deep house music with guitar samples, you might not really want it to pump that hard. So you could use that to just have the sidechain on in the low end whenever the kick hits, and leave kind of the top end without the sidechain. And the thing that I heard in those track submits that was most of the times wrong was first the amount of sidechain. You need to find the right sweet spot where it's not too much, that it's like over pumping and it's just like pumping kick. That sounds really stupid. Might work for some big room EDM kind of genres where it's kind of part of the style, but even there, don't exaggerate it. And if it's not enough, your kick won't really cut through and you will lose a lot of space kind of in the mix, because this is actually helping you to create space for the kick. Whenever the kick hits, it's the most important in EDM. Everything else gets ducked a little just for that split second or millisecond, so that you actually don't really hear it, but you still have way more space. And it's not only the amount that people do wrong, it's also the timing and the feel of the sidechain, because that pumping has a rhythm. If you place it wrong, it just will sound awkward. So actually the length of the trigger material is very important. With the LFO tool, you just change it by moving left and right. If you use a trigger kick, you might want to shorten the kick that is actually triggering. Or I know some people, they use a hi-hat instead of a kick to trigger it, just to keep the sidechain shorter, not for the entire bass duration part of the kick, because some kicks are really long, especially in slower kinds of music or in hip-hop music, future bass. You actually want the sidechain just to be at the beginning of the kick, like where the most impact is actually happening. And then the rest of the bass note, the sustain, if that part is also triggering the sidechain, your track will just be constantly kind of pumping. It just sounds weird. The gaps of the ducking are just too long. At the end, your entire track gets ducked at the beginning very hard, and at the end not that hard, but it's like constantly pumping, which sounds really awkward. So try to be a bit more precise with your sidechaining. It can be a beautiful tool that will help you to get your mixing right. It can destroy your entire track and make it sound awkward. And there are certain rules and advices I can give you what to sidechain and how much to sidechain it. I will talk about it after I advanced working on the remix. By the way, if you're wondering why I'm using the music keyboard this kind of keyboard and not this kind of keyboard, it doesn't work. I don't know what it is. Maybe the MIDI something isn't working with the outputs. I hope this isn't broken. I just love this keyboard, but yeah, today didn't really use it at all. I will figure it out. It's probably just something with Logic. It's usually just something with Logic. I don't want to buy a new one, especially now that I'm giving away the Arturia one. So I would have to go back to this crappy old thing. That's the very first keyboard I ever used. If my big one will work again, I might actually also do a giveaway for this one. I mean, it's anyways just standing here collecting dust, so why not give it to someone that will actually play with it. But yeah, back to the sidechaining. There are a couple of elements where I can't really recommend you to use sidechaining. First of all, on claps. It sounds really weird on clap sounds. So whenever the clap is on top of the second kick and it then just sustains, it gets cut by the next kick. No, it gets cut by the kick that is underneath of the clap. That's what makes it sound really weird. So you're kind of losing the attack of your clap or snare, which is the most important part. It just needs to hit. So yeah, in most cases, don't sidechain your clap or snare. It just sounds awkward. If you still want to integrate it in the mix and have that pumpy feeling on the clap and snare, then just put the sidechain on top of the reverb and not onto the sample itself. A place where you definitely need sidechaining, and quite a lot of sidechaining, is actually the low end. The more you use it there, the more you separate kick and bass and just create more space and glue the two together to be like this nice sub-bottom layer. You can actually make it quite audible because there are anyways things playing on top, so you don't really have to care about it. And the pumpy feel in the low end, especially for more electronic kinds of music, is actually really helping in the club. If you're doing more acoustic influenced music, it just sounds stupid to have the sidechaining on top of a nice guitar sample or on vocals. Maybe on vocals that are heavily affected and more in the background, but definitely not on your main vocals. For big room EDM, you can use sidechaining on pretty much almost everything that is like synthesizer based, be it like pads in the background, main chord steps, main synthesizers. With the main synthesizers, be careful. If the notes get kind of eaten by the sidechaining, it will ruin your melody lines. So for the main melody parts, don't really do it. But on future bass chord steps, it sounds amazing, especially if you put it on 8s or 16s, because it gives that pumpy feel to it way more often than the kick is actually playing, and this way the track sounds a lot faster than it actually is. So instead of having like a steady pad, you have this pumpy kind of feely pad that is almost like adding like hi-hats. You get the same speedy kind of feel without actually having to use hi-hats. So that's it for today with the kind of tutorial music kind of part. As you know, yesterday I started with my taxes, and I finished almost everything except for these invoices and all of this. I have to go through them and put them into an Excel sheet. Big fun. I'm so happy it's just once per year. I know people that have to do it every month or every quarter. I don't know. You know what? Fuck it. I will do it tomorrow. That's pretty much it. Like, subscribe. If you want to win the Arturia Keylab, just go to my Instagram and Facebook. See you tomorrow.